Hey guys, and welcome to another Notorious CID game. Today we have my Xerxes2 versus Tim playing the Child.
I won the die roll, and I'm going to be going first this game, but I think we're going to talk about Evan's list quickly first, because it'll take us quite a bit longer to talk about what I'm playing.
Yeah, so I brought Xerxes2 with the typical support, Kreia, Agonizer, double beast handlers. One of them's a max, and then the rest of the battle group is, or really the rest of the army, is Despoiler, Tiberian, and a Gladiator. I wanted to try Tiberian in my list because it's so hard to fit him in, I find, because Despoiler exists. I've basically just used this as a trial run for Tiberian, see what he can do.
This is a little bit of a variant on the list that you played at the Ontario Team Championships, which you did extremely well with, and different from, but not dissimilar from, the list that you saw me play on our Kingston Battle Report games if you watched the Ancillary Attack series. So if you want more Xerxes 2, we have more Xerxes 2 for you to watch on the channel.
Yep.
I'm going to really, really quickly go over what my list was, and then we're going to talk in detail about what the models are like right now. Big proviso at the beginning of the report, as with all of the community integrated development games in this particular series, all of this is subject to change. We're testing week 3 Grimkin right now. I suspect by the time this is published, we'll be into week 4 Grimkin, so some of these things may have changed. We're going to be playing them as they are and publishing the video as it is, but keep that in mind. These are not finished rules, and the models being used are proxies for what the final models will be, which we will be also playing games with once they're available. So real quick, my list is the Child. I'm playing the Child with a fairly large battle group. I'm playing 3 Skin and Moans, that's the melee heavy, and then I'm also playing a Cage Rager, that's the more support-oriented heavy. Then I have 2 Krabbits, who are included for free as part of the Dark Menagerie tier, and I have a Death Nell, which is the support kind of battle engine. I have 2 max units of Dreadrot, and then I have Lady Katarina Rose, and a Gremlin Swarm, and a Glimmer Imp. And we'll be going over exactly what those models are in more detail, as well as showing you what our proxies look like in a second. All right, so as you can see here, we're using the Harbinger of Menoth as our proxy for the Child. One of the things Privateer Press recommends is, rather than using just bases with names on them or paper standees, which we've used in some games before in some companies, they really recommend using not only a physical model, but actually a Privateer Press equivalency, something nearby that resembles the right notion of rules for the model. So I've picked a Child on a large base, which there's 3 main reasons for that particular piece of advice. The first one is it's really, really important in a game like War Machine, which is very strategic, but also very, very tactical. War Machine has been described as mostly a tactical game. That means that things change quickly, and prompt, intuitive choices based on an evolving board state are the most critical pieces of the game's evolution. A game like Warhammer 40k is quite a strategic game. The old Warhammer Fantasy was really strategic. Those were games that going in with a really, really broad game plan made a ton of sense, and allocating your attacks appropriately was really important. War Machine's a really tactical game, and I realize I'm digressing a little bit, but the reason that's important is because Evan, who's a person making quick, snap, reactionary decisions every single turn, needs to be able to look at that model and intuitively get a sense for what it is. So in the development cycle, we paid a lot of attention to that idea of this should look like and feel like what it's supposed to feel like. The other reason that the development team posted on the community forums is the kind of the tactile feel of holding a model and kind of having a model do the thing it's supposed to do and kind of feel like the thing it's supposed to feel is actually a really relevant part about what makes it fun. And if we played a whole bunch of test games and our feedback was this army just doesn't feel fun, we would hate for the reason to be that we were playing with a bunch of paper dolls and they're just not as fun to play with.
I feel it's also important to note that things like paper standees and proxy bases, while models are sometimes easy to bump, proxy bases and paper standees are even easier to bump. In fact, paper standees sometimes just literally blow over.
Yeah, I actually had a game that I was playing with a bunch of paper standees, and someone opened a door at our local game store, and the entire game disappeared. Literally blew off the table. So without further ado, we're going to talk a little bit about the child. In this cycle of development, she got a couple of brief changes. She gained Field Marshal Pain Response, and her strength stat went up to 12. So that makes her a Speed 6, Strength 12, Mat 8, Rat Irrelevant, Defense 14, Arm 17, Command 5, which is quite critical because a lot of things in this faction are command range based with reference to the Arcanas, and she's Fury 7. She's got a healthy 29 War Beast points, which is something we've seen before, and 18 boxes and a large base. So what you can see here is like a melee beater type of stat line, similar to something like Butcher, a little bit less tanky in the armor department, but we'll get to how she solves that problem in a second. She personally has Bulldoze, and as you already mentioned, Field Marshal Pain Response, which is free charges for her War Beasts if they're damaged, which is a really cool enabler for, so that's one of the things we're focusing on testing this time. And then Outrage. Outrage is a lot like Battle Driven. When she's damaged by an enemy attack, after it's resolved, she gets +2 strength and armor and Pathfinder for 1 round. So that's really powerful with transfers. She can do this thing where she like walks up the middle of the board and is like, I'm a boss with a bunch of transfers, takes one to the face with her 14-17 stat line, transfers it, is still considered to have taken the damage, and is now 14-19. And even scarier the following round in melee.
Now, just because I have this question, haven't actually asked you yet, what is the difference between this and Battle Driven?
This doesn't affect a unit.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe it's just typesetting for this affects a single model versus
future-proof.
Yeah, and also Battle Driven says like models in this unit get at this thing. It also may just be a fluffy choice. Like she's a child being really, really angry. It like Battle Driven feels like an awkward narrative.
Okay.
And a lot of this is always about painting a narrative.
Makes sense.
She also has retaliatory strikes, so if someone comes up and punches her, she can punch them back, which is pretty cool. She has the somewhat restrictive 1-inch melee on her 2 claw attacks, but they're power strength 16, which means if you punch her at 1-inch melee, she goes to power strength 18 and then punches you back from that outrage interaction. And she has critical pitch, so there's a fair chance if you charge her with something that just has a 1-inch melee, she's going to throw it away in an angry tantrum. She's a really cool character, and I'm a big fan. Spell-wise, she's got a fairly short spell list. Abuse, which you may recognize from Morgul 1. It's +2 speed and strength for a War Beast. Range 6 cost 2, not an upkeep, so she can throw it out a couple of times, but it then does D3 damage points to that War Beast.
Which triggers Field Marshal Pain Response.
It does. It's almost like they thought about that, eh?
Almost.
Yeah. She also has a couple of like, I'm angry type spells. So that's Discord, which is target model in her battle group gains Wailing. So that one's an upkeep, and Wailing is within 5 inches of a model with Wailing. Enemy models cannot give or receive orders and cannot cast spells. You see the Wailing rule on the Banshee. You see the Discord spell on Gristle.
Gristle 2?
I think it's Gristle 2.
I think it's 2.
I'm pretty sure it's Gristle 2. Gristle 1's pretty stacked already. So yeah, this is a sweet spell. It's really cool. Obviously, it fits the narrative really well. I like it quite a bit. And Force Hammer, which is the spell you've seen on Ron, Haley 3, Siege has it, I think, Krios 3, pardon me. It's cost 4, range 10, and it's a POW 12 slam. So regardless of base size, a model hit is slammed D6 inches, and the collateral is also POW 12. Sweet spell, but it does mean that her only offensive nuke is a cost 4 nuke, which is always an interesting balancing point on a caster.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. It's also really good because even though you're a Hordes faction, you have access to arc nodes.
Yeah, some limited arc nodes. The Cage Rager can spend a corpse to become an arc node, so that's pretty cool. He's a speed 4 heavy, but you've got some tools for it. Mm-hmm. She's pretty frontline, so she likes to be up there anyway. And then Guardian Protector. Target friendly War Beast gains Righteous Vengeance. So that's a really cool one. Righteous Vengeance is if a warrior model, a faction warrior model, should I say, is destroyed or removed from play by enemy attacks within 5 inches of a model with Righteous Vengeance during the last round. On your maintenance phase, the model with Righteous Vengeance can advance up to 3 inches and then make a basic melee attack. So it's a little threat extender. It also, it's kind of a bit of a yin and yang. She's obviously got a lot of reasons to take a beast-heavy battle group. Here's a reason to include a couple warrior models. So that's cool. Yeah, it's neat. I think she's a great caster, and I'm really excited to put her on the table.
So next up, we have the Cage Rager.
So the Cage Rager is the sort of support heavy, as I mentioned briefly. He's got speed 4, and defense 10, armor 19, so like Malach Jack stat lines. He's mat 6, and then he has 2 power strength 17 magical beatback gibbet attacks, which are like big cages he smashes at you. So he's actually pretty reasonable in melee. A lot of people in the CID forums have said like he's their melee go-to beast and they don't bother taking Skin and Moans. I really like Skin and Moans and I think they really perform for me. So I always include this guy in a lot of lists. He gets back his points pretty quickly. He also gives the faction access to a couple of cool tools. The Wraithbane Animus is a big one. That's new as of week 2. He also has 32 boxes, so he's like kind of near Jack level tough, which is nice to see. And then he picks up corpses by killing undead or warrior models on enemy warrior models. He can spend a corpse to get the Arc Node advantage, the ability to have spells channeled through it. And then he can also spend corpses to upkeep your caster's spells or spend corpses for Arcane Vortex. So he's got a lot of really cool things he can do with corpses, but he actually kind of struggles to acquire them a little bit, which is one of the reasons that I'm playing this in the Dark Menagerie tier, where all of your models that can collect corpses, save for the Dreadrot, begin the game with corpses. So he's neat. I've enjoyed playing him.
Next up's the Skin and Moans, which you talked a little bit about as being the heavy hitter, and it really does show with what he can bring.
Yeah, I brought 3 Skin and Moans in this list.
Sorry, before, did we mention the proxy we had for the Cage Rager?
Oh, sorry, of course. I missed the proxy for the Cage Rager. We're using... I should again talk about the reason for the proxy. Yeah, so it's Seethers we're using for Cage Ragers. I put a couple down here because I brought, in this particular game, the Arcana, where you can place a heavy if something enters a melee range or something in your caster's command. So if somebody comes really close, I can stick a Seether down next to them. Which I thought was cute because I used to play Seethers with the Wither Shadow Combine. But the Seether's a good proxy for the Cage Rager because it gives you that sort of more Warjack-oriented stat line. They're not exactly the same stat line, but I felt like I wanted something that looked physically intimidating and tanky like a Warjack would, but also had that kind of nefarious look that I felt inspired by the art for the Cage Ragers. So
he also got like a lot of chains coming off of his hands, which
yeah,
resemble like...
The chains are a good fit
in a sort of in a sort of way.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, so Skin and Moans. First thing I'm going to mention is we're using, as you can obviously see here, Scythians as proxies for Skin and Moans.
It makes a lot of sense. Reach 2.
Yep.
Knives for hands.
Speed 5. I mean, the Scythian has Pathfinder base. The Skin and Moans can get Pathfinder with the Animus, so it gives it that sense of a mobile heavy, like a little bit.
Arguably bad defensive stat line.
Yeah. I mean, they actually have the same combined profile, although I think Skin and Moans exercises a little bit better, and the access to corpses to give them extra armor helps him a lot. Skin and Moans are 13-16, which is a really weird stat line for a heavy, but he can go up armor by having corpses, and the tier list starts him off with a corpse. So he starts at 13-17 in this list, and then if he gets any corpses, he can go up to as many as 13-19. So he's actually, I like this chassis a lot. I find him one of the more durable ones, and he starts at power strength 16 and gets +1 strength for every corpse on him, so he can be up to power strength 19. I considered using Warpwolf Stalkers because I feel like this guy's closest real comparison is a Warpwolf Stalker for the way that he has this kind of incredible versatility, but ultimately decided the Scythians were a better fit because I wanted to represent the sort of sinisterness of this nightmare creature, and I feel like the Everblight aesthetic does it better than the Circle one would have. You kind of want to cuddle a Warpwolf. You don't want to cuddle a Skin and Moans. You probably don't want to cuddle a Pureblood either.
No.
All right, so we're using Shredders as our proxies for Krabbits. Krabbits are the lesser war beasts in the faction, so it felt really natural to go to the OG lesser war beasts.
Yeah, they have kind of like jumpy-looking frog legs, and they're made of mostly mouth.
Yep. So Krabbits are defense 13, arm 12, speed 6, and they can jump for a Fury. They're 13 boxes like a lot of lessers. Their Animus is elusive, and they have Shield Guard.
Yep.
And a POW 8 bite.
They're neat, and you get 2 free ones in the tier.
Yeah, I'm taking 2 free ones and 1 free Gremlin Swarm in the tier.
And up next is Such a cool battle engine. The Death Knell.
Yeah, the Death Knell is really cool, and we're using another cool battle engine to represent it. So the Sacral Vault is a pretty good facsimile for a Death Knell. I'm not 100% sure. I considered briefly using a Vessel of Judgment, and then I considered briefly using a Khador Battle Wagon, but I felt like the Sacral Vault gave that notion of kind of collecting corpses, like let's say collect souls. So the Death Knell is a speed 6 battle engine, which is my only qualm with this particular representation, as I feel like this battle engine is a lot faster than the Sacral Vault looks. But it's got a defensive stat line of 12-18, and it is cavalry and a construct with Pathfinder like most battle engines, and it has a bring out your dead rule.
Bring out your dead.
Nice Monty Python reference right there. So when an enemy living or undead model is destroyed in its command range, he gains the destroyed model's corpse token. Then when a friendly living faction model is destroyed by a continuous effect, an enemy attack, or collateral damage from an enemy attack while in this model's command range, this model gains the destroyed model's corpse token. He can have up to 5 corpse tokens at any time. And then during his activation, he can spend corpse tokens to heal D3, not unlike the Skin and Moans. He also has Finisher, so additional die against damaged models, and Entropic Force, so within 5 inches, enemy models can't have damage removed from them. And then a couple of the really important rules he has are Special Delivery, which is once per turn at any time during its activation, so even in a turn where it runs, he can remove any number of corpse tokens and place them on a friendly faction model with the ability to gain corpse tokens within 5. You can't exceed your normal corpse collection limit with that ability, but like you can give Skin and Moans 3 corpses if you have them, or you can give the Cage Rager 3 corpses, which really are the way that I have primarily fueled heavies in this faction.
Yeah, because he starts with a corpse token in this tier as well.
As a benefit of the tier.
So right off the hop, you can give a corpse to a Skin and Moans if you'd like.
Yep, which is really relevant. I've been doing that in a lot of games prior to this week. This week, a change he received is the new rule, Warmth of the Grave. It says, while this model has 1 or more corpse tokens, friendly faction models gain +2 armor, while within 4 inches of this model, +1 for each corpse token. Now, that used to be the same as the Protective Aura ability on the Creelstone, and it was very difficult to turn on effectively if your opponent didn't bring a lot of corpses to fuel your army. And in a matchup like this, where Evan's army has very, very few corpses for me, not only have I brought a lot of corpses on my own, but I also am leaving that tier benefit corpse token on him so that I have at least a 5-inch Protective Aura straight off the hop.
Did you mention Finisher?
Yeah, Finisher. He does have Finisher. I mentioned it before, but it's he's got 2 power strength 10 attacks, 1 mount which he can impact with, and then the actual scythe that the dude on it is carrying. Both of those attacks are only power strength 10, but Finisher helps them a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way that he can do a little bit of late game clearing, which I like about it. Appreciate support pieces that can participate.
Moving on to solos, we have a Gremlin Swarm, represented by a Gremlin Swarm.
Yeah, apologies for not having this one painted. I didn't have a lot of purpose for Gremlin Swarms, although honestly they play well on a couple of other lists, and I've been including them more and more. But they are Grimkin models, which means they count as faction models when they're in the Grimkin army. And they in this tier list have Serenity, which is really good because it helps manage the fury on your war beasts. And they also are just like incorporeal stealth apparition flag contesting models, which I love them for. Like late game, these guys score so much. Like they're really, really useful. I don't need to say a ton about Gremlin Swarms because they're in War Room and they've been legal for a while. But they're minions, and if you don't own them already, you may want to get them for Grimkin because I suspect they will sell it quickly.
And then we have the Glimmer Imp.
So the Glimmer Imp I'm representing by a Scrap Thrall here. I wanted something that showed fairly weak stat line, like fairly easy to kill. Glimmer Imps actually have defense 14, but they're only arm 10, and they kind of die quickly. I also wanted something that looked small in terms of profile. I didn't have a lot of great options in the factions I had nicely painted. Sorry, the Gremlin Swarm we showed a second ago, I just wanted to express regrets I don't have it painted, but we will. So the Glimmer Imp has a couple of really neat rules. He has Eyeless Sight and Stealth, which is his defensive tech. The Eyeless Sight thing is cute because he can charge through clouds. But most of the reason that I include him in this list is because of his paralyzing gaze. So enemy models who have line of sight to this model suffer -2 defense while in his command range. Now his command's only 5, so you need to get pretty close, but it's a little bit like a debuff version of Mark the Target that applies to all attacks.
Yeah.
It's got some weird things about it, like they need to have line of sight to the Glimmer Imp, so he can't like get a big bubble of guys unless they all happen to be staring at a weird spot. But he certainly can run up and give functionally a +2 map buff to your heavies. He also has a melee attack. It does an automatic 1 point. It's magical typed. It doesn't normally do damage, but if it it doesn't normally do damage other than the 1 point, should I say. But if it hits a living or undead model, it blinds them.
He scoops out their eye with a spoon.
Yep, that's literally, this is a creepy little imp with a spoon who scoops people's eyes out.
It's disturbing, as is most of this faction. But
it's kind of their shtick.
Yeah. Lady Kiana Rose.
Lady Kiana Rose. She's available in this tier list and virtually an auto include. She has ancillary attack, enrage, and shepherd's call as her 3 actions. So she can say, "You there? Make another attack."
She just took the best support option from every faction.
Yeah, so like the Vassal of Menoth, she has access to ancillary attack. Like the Paingiver Beast Handlers, she has enrage.
Mark II Vassal.
Doesn't Mark the no enrage? Or
they have empower and enliven these days.
Oh, they lost ancillary attack.
But Targ has ancillary attack.
Okay, cool. So they have the best support in hordes. They have Targ's ancillary attack. They have the Paingiver Beast Handlers and Rage, and they have the Druid Wilders Shepherd's Call, which is removing a fury from each living friendly faction war beast currently within 3. That's all the war beasts anyway. They're nightmares, but they're technically alive.
And the coolest defensive tech in the game.
Yeah, so her defensive stats are terrible. She's defense 13, arm 12. She's a $5 solo, but she doesn't have stealth or anything that you'd normally expect a solo to have to protect herself. Instead, she has Sorrowful Rampage. The Grim can really like this gal. She's the crazy person in the asylum who is the reason that they got unlocked from hell and were able to come to Earth, or Urkane to Kane. That's the Earth and Hell terms in the Iron Kingdoms, if you didn't know. So Sorrowful Rampage says, if this model is destroyed by an enemy attack during your next turn, friendly faction models get +1 to attack and damage rolls.
Also, this is represented by the what is it?
Deathwalker. Yeah,
that
I
yes.
wanted a really unique female model who looked like a non-combat participant. So this is a Deathwalker, Gorshade 1's unit. She's a fairly unique looking timid female character, which I felt like was the right notion for a somewhat crazy person who has to spend all of her time hanging out with disgusting scary nightmare creatures and is kind of okay with it.
Fair enough. And the Dreadrots.
Yeah, so I have 2 max units of Dreadrots here, which we've represented by Bane Thralls. Bane Thralls are speed 5, Dreadrot are speed 5. Bane Thralls are weapon masters, Dreadrot are weapon masters. Bane Thralls, Bane Warriors are melee range 1.
We're taking it back today. Going back to Mark II.
Yeah,
Ancillary attack vassals.
Bane
Thralls.
Sorry, people. It's what happens sometimes. So Dreadrots they're living, not undead, and they don't have Ghostly or Pathfinder, which is quite relevant. But they're speed 5, defense 12, and arm 14. A lot of people have talked about these guys as the crazy, nasty weapon masters in this faction. I disagree. They're only power strength 10, so they can do some work, but they're not, despite the proxy, they're not Bane Thralls.
Having only played the Heretic thus far, I do agree.
Yeah,
but
the Heretic helps them.
My opinion is skewed, to
Fair.
say the least.
They have a couple of cool rules. They have Tough, not unlike Bane Warriors. And they have Command 7, so they have to bunch up a little bit. But they have Bagman, which is models disabled by a melee attack made by this model can't make a tough roll. It's a little bit like Takedown, except they don't RFP. And if they box a living or undead model with a melee attack, they gain the box model's corpse token, and the box model is removed from play. So they do remove from play. My apologies. And
that person can't tough.
Yeah, and that person can't tough. And then they can have 1 corpse token each. And then they have a rule called Victuals. You can neither raise nor buy, which I believe is a Lovecraft reference. It says when a friendly non-Dreadrot model that can gain corpse tokens ends its normal movement within 5 inches of this model, it can remove a corpse token from this model and place it on itself before it performs the combat action.
It's really neat. You can do some stuff like Dreadrots go into a unit, kill some stuff, get some corpses, then a heavy charges a heavy nearby,
And they fill
takes
up
the
skin and
corpses. Yeah, exactly.
Or just even the Cage Rager just walks up and then grabs a bunch of corpse tokens off them, which is really cool.
Yeah. It's cool.
They're really good. This is a change from their original rule, which was they could give it to something within 5 inches. I found they were always way too far forward to ever do that. So now you kind of leapfrog it back. The tier list specifically prohibits them from gaining
Corpses. Because that'd be ridiculous.
Yeah. Then you just everything would be full and it would be super silly.
Yeah.
Also, they recently had a change this cycle. They got a field allowance of 3. So lists that were about just playing 60 Dreadrot that were a little uninteresting have been tuned down. I'm not a huge fan of super restricted field allowances as a balancing mechanic, but I feel like with these guys, you want to see a little bit of variety showcased in an army, and preventing that corner case with the field allowance of 3 is pretty good. Field allowance 3 still feels like something that they should have an awful lot of, and this is definitely the unit that they need to bring a lot of because Grimkin need to support their own corpses.
Yes. That, and it's not 60 tough weapon masters.
Correct. It's not 60 top weapons. In the other tier, they have Rise, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was a little silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, taking out of account the fact that, like, just they're slow and they're only POW 10, but, like, it's just 60 tough dudes, and that's gross. But I think that's about it for all our proxies and our going over what these models do, and I think we're just about ready to head into the game.
All right, Evan. So I won the die roll and chose to go first. What motivated you to pick the side you did?
I figured that you have less Pathfinder than I do. That's not inherently true, because Lurker, the animus that the Skin and Moans have, does give Pathfinder. But I figured I can sit on the bottom flag, get through the rubble pretty easily, and you have to deal with water, which doesn't really help you in either case.
Yeah. So, Lurker, I mean, it's not Rush. Rush, you kind of throw out whatever you want. Lurker is self. And it also means the model who lurkers itself doesn't get to run, which is pretty relevant. So I activate the child first. I throw Abuse out, and then I put out Guardian Beast and Discord, the one that gives Wailing. One of my Skin and Moans runs up. And the child here is on 1. I feel pretty confident on 1 here because I think Evan doesn't have a ton of guns to deal with. The abused Skin and Moans casts Lurker on itself and tramples, giving it Pathfinder and moving it 10 inches, which is pretty relevant because it goes from speed 5 to speed 7, tramples 10. And then the last Skin and Moans just runs up. Lady Kiana and the Cage Rager both run up. So you can see Lady Kiana is going to go through that water. It does kind of compact my deployment a little bit. The biggest thing about the side choice here is Evan has really forced me to go through a bunch of rough terrain, which has meant my Dreadrot have to deploy wide. And I really want them to fill that zone in the middle and really jam for me. And instead they're going to have to kind of go out and then compress back in, which is not the best thing for them. Finally, the Glimmer Imp I'm going to run up centrally because I need to kind of unpack the Glimmer Imp first. He's kind of the debuff model who has to go out there. The Death Nell runs up and just sits right on top of that water feature. Having access to Pathfinder with a big 5-inch base is it's a fairly large percentage of my deployment area that just gets to have Pathfinder because of it.
I honestly, at the beginning of that turn, I did not remember that circular water was there, like the green one, and now I remember why. There's a Death Knell there.
Yep, that Death Knell is just on top of the water.
So here I'm basically trying to just get as far up the board as I can while staying out of the threat range of Skin and Moans, and that's not that hard because I can do that while having 1 or 2 Skin and Moans in the threat range of Despoiler, because Despoiler threats 14,
yeah,
and Tiberian threats 13.
Yeah, they're all scary. Big long threat ranges. Thing is, the child can abuse her beasts and accelerate the Skin and Moans up to a threat range of 12, which is really good.
And that brings them to a ridiculously high power, like 21 with a corpse?
If they have a corpse, it's 20 plus 1 for every corpse they have on them, and the Skin and Moans all have 1 corpse right
Which is really good.
now. Yeah. That does include rage. Enrage. I can only put enrage on one
Correct.
of them.
Okay. So I basically move my beasts to the edge of the zone outside of all your threats. Despoiler threading 1 or 2 beasts. Tiberian, I think, threading the 1 Skin and Moans. And then I just kind of array my support pieces in the back line so that they can be useful the next turn. I will trample Xerxes up to the flag. I put Rapport on Tiberian, even though he doesn't really need the mat. I think I need the extended control range because he's probably going to be the one to deal with the top unit of Dreadrots because his bond is Overtake, so having those 3 initials and 4 Fury means he can clear out quite a few, especially if he gets a lucky crit slam or 2.
Yeah, he has some like good access to infantry clearing tools, which I really didn't appreciate about him with Xerxes, just by virtue of having 3 initials and like really reliable hits and really reliable damage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your Rapport and Ignite on the Despoiler.
Because
Ignite on the
he
Despoiler
hits
is
like a truck.
terrifying. A lot of people don't kind of do the right math on the Despoiler. Like, he doesn't look that impressive when you just look at his base stat line. But don't forget, Xerxes has access to a +4 swing on that, and he also has Dark Shroud just all the time. So, like, whatever you see there, add 6 to it, and that's the Despoiler.
Yeah, not only that, the feat turn just makes critical brutal on the tail.
Oh, yeah.
Surprisingly reliable.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done the math on what the feat is, but I think it's fairly high.
Yeah.
Depends, obviously, on the kind of target you're going into. But basically, imagine the number of times you would crit on a boost, and then, imagine the number of times that one of those dice being removed wouldn't still give you a hit. And that's his critical math.
Yeah. So that's my first turn. I've just kind of squared up against him here, and I'm waiting to see what he does.
So I've got some real problems this turn. For one thing, that wall is kind of an issue for me, and it's not really an issue for Evan. To get over that wall with my charges, I need to cast Lurker, and that means I'm a 3 Fury heavy going in, and that doesn't trade super well with a lot of his stuff. He's also got quite a bit of armor. So my goal here is I'm going to try to at least pressure some peace trades by leading with Dreadrot. So Dreadrot on the top there are going to flood that zone, and I'm going to hold a Skin and Moans back behind the Death Knell there to hopefully kill whatever Evan sends in to deal with them and to contest that bottom flag. I debate putting the child onto my own flag this turn to start threatening for scenario play, but ultimately decide that I want to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of threatening his pieces. If I let Evan come in unchecked, do a bunch of damage to me, and then I initiate peace trades, I probably am going to lose too many things to be able to stay in this game. So I check the threat range on the Despoiler, and I decide my plan with the Guardian Beast is to pressure the spot Xerxes wants to be. Xerxes wants to be scoring that flag in the pit to win 5 consecutive turns, just scoring a point, scoring a point, scoring a point. So I'm going to put the Skin and Bones way out on this flank, and I'm going to put it within 12 of Xerxes so that Xerxes could charge me if he finds a lane, but probably he has to stay off the flag, which means the child's going to be fairly central. And I decide at this point that I'm not going to put a lot of Fury in my battle group. I'm going to keep the child at 5 Fury, and I'm going to stick her right up the middle of the board with the Protective Aura up. If Evan sends in a bronze back on me, after he hits me the first time, I'll be armed 21. I'll have 5 transfers and 18 boxes, and he'll have triggered my nasty child hitting power. So my plan there is to basically buy myself another heavy by surviving an assassination. And I feel like it's a tricky choice to make. I feel like he's got to have that decision or not. So, with that plan in action, Gremlin Swarm runs up to contest Evan's flag. Gotta force him to do some work if I'm going to threaten with that Skin and Moans. Lady Katarina runs up so that she's next to that Skin and Moans, ready to enrage it if I get the opportunity to go in on Xerxes with it. I strongly suspect that Evan is going to do something to mitigate that. Other Skin and Moans runs over to this side, moves through that Dreadrot, like around the Dreadrot, and then stays back a little bit. I probably put him in threat range and shouldn't have, but I feel like I need to bait him out a little bit. The Death Knell moves up. I'm trying to get all of these guys in the range so that if Evan destroys them, I collect their corpses, because having a bunch of corpses on the Death Knell and being able to allocate them to my beasts later is really important. I suspect this might have been a mistake, but it's a kind of educational mistake. That Death Knell's a little bit further up than it really needs to be to get Protective Aura on the things that I have to have them on, so that's a bit of a greedy play. As already described, the Skin and Moans on the top runs to threaten whatever comes in to kill the Dreadrot, and Evan points out that I may have put the Gremlin Swarm a little bit further out, so we push them back so they're just within 4 of that flag. Child walks up into the zone, casting no more spells. Krabbits, one of them jumps in front of her, and the other one just walks up. Cage Rager walks up so that if he tries to stranglehold the child as part of an assassination run, I can Vortex Stranglehold, and I can kind of protect child that way, just to make that math a little bit better for me. And I'm hot by 1 point this turn, and it is deliberate, expecting that I may need to transfer an attack, and that the Krabbit he will clear the lane to try to assassinate me with this turn will give me another transfer.
So at the beginning of my turn, I basically see the Gremlin Swarm, and I more or less have to kill it with Xerxes either by strangleholding or using his melee attack, and I decide to go in with the melee attack because I have sprint and I can get away fairly easily. And I can clear out some Dreadrots while I'm doing it. And so I position myself in such a way that I am not within 1 inch of Dreadrots that I'm not going to kill with the mount.
Okay.
And so I can, so that when I sprint away, I don't take a free strike, and I can also, with my feet, cast 2 strangleholds, hopefully strangleholding both Skin and Moans.
And just for reference here, because of Despoiler for free, you upkept Rapport, and you spent 1 to upkeep Ignite, right?
Correct.
Okay. So both upkeeps are still out, and Xerxes is on 4.
So Xerxes is currently the proxy base. We're doing the impact attacks. My mount has auto knockdown, so they don't get the tough.
Yeah, so your impact attacks just kill. It looks like 2 of the Dreadrots, pretty sure?
Yep, because I was only in melee range of 2 of them.
And you did feat this turn.
And I did feat, so it's additional die, drop 1 of my choice.
Mm-hmm.
I use my War Standard charge attack on my charge target, which was a Dreadrot, so I don't have silly facing. And then I use my Lamenter, which is his kind of mace flail Tetsubo thing, to kill the Gremlin Swarm, which I do easily with my feet. Don't have to buy an attack, just outright kills it. And then I stranglehold the top Skin and Moans. Well, I guess middle one in this case. I hit it, but at dice -8 because he's in range of the Death Knell, I do not do a point of damage. I'm off by 1. So he's not stranglehold held. So I decide, okay, the other one is not in your aura, so I'll do that. And I manage to do 5 damage to him, which is a pretty significant chunk, and he's strangleheld.
Yeah, and that one took 3 damage from the abuse before, so it's actually taken 8 damage now, which is pretty relevant.
And then I have cleared the flag, I sprint back, and I'm on it, and I'm feeling pretty safe.
Okay. It's worth pointing out at this point that you did kill a warrior model within 5, so you triggered Guardian Beast on the one that is stranglehold, but he is stranglehold.
Yes. So at this point, I am basically just planning out my charge targets and what I'm going to do with my war beasts.
So you are within 12 of one of the Skin and Moans, or sorry, probably of both of the Skin and Moans at this point, but one of them stranglehold and the other one you're intending to kill with Despoiler.
Correct.
Okay.
So, I'm also trying to make the decision of which beast I rush this turn, because I don't have to rush Tiberian. He can just walk into that top unit of Dreadrots and do some work.
Sorry, important Grimkin note here. When you damaged the Skin and Moans with Stranglehold, I triggered the Arcana Tantrum.
So all your beasts are Fury 5, and the Dreamer is now Fury 8.
Sorry, she's the child.
Child
is Fury 8.
That one.
Yep. So that gives +1 Fury for a round to all of my stuff. If Evan damaged one of my war beasts, sorry, I modeled my battle group with an enemy attack. So she's, no, it's my turn, like angrily, when you break my things, because she's an angry child, which is kind of amazing, actually, as a warcaster.
So I determined that Despoiler doesn't need Rush to get where he wants to go. He will take 1 free strike from Dreadrot, but I can get the Gnawing Pain Aura in there, so it'll be dice -10, which you're still a weapon master, but I'm okay with taking the average damage I would take, which is 4
Yeah.
in any aspect.
Average dice says 4. You're probably fine. Even if I spike, I have to roll an even numbered column, or sorry, an odd numbered column to be relevant.
Exactly. So I start out with Tiberius. I don't bother enraging him or giving him free charge because he doesn't need the strength and he doesn't need to charge to get any distance. He just walks to that proxy and starts doing work, and he overtakes an inch, so he gets a little deeper.
Speed 6 is really, really nice on the elephants. I mean, that field marshal +1 speed.
2.
Plus 2 speed, of course. I forget sometimes how much work it does.
So Tiberian is just kind of chewing through this unit of Dreadrots. I think 1 or 2 of them tough, and I do eventually make it to where I want to be, which is in contesting range of the flag. Because I don't think anything else I have could have gotten there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not scoring the flag yet, but I very well could on my turn, and that's probably a problem for you.
I also think it's worth noting, I put Puppet Master onto Despoiler for later.
Yep.
With the Will Breaker. He just kind of stood in his rubble because he doesn't have to move too much because both of his things are range 10 or 9.
It's also probably worth noting against a Grimkin army how nasty and powerful it is to kill a whole bunch of Dreadrot when my Death Knell is full now.
Yeah, so that aura is 9 inches.
Yep.
And then next turn he can just pass those corpses to a thing that wants them.
Right. So, I mean, I brought all of these Dreadrot to fill up this Death Knell and to allocate corpses to my beasts. So you have killed, for this turn that I got corpses from, and I think you've killed like close to 10 Dreadrot now. So you've killed 6 that I got nothing from. So you've denied me the very resource that is their point in the list.
Yes. I'm also, so I've decided that I can rush the bronze back with my Gladiator because Despoiler doesn't need it because he's not going over the wall and is in range without the +2 speed. But I don't know where I want to actually put the bronze back. There's a couple of places he can go. I can take out that Dreadrot to prevent the free strike. But eventually I see that I can trample into the Death Knell by melee attacks, because I'll have 4 Fury left after that at dice -1, which under my feet is still a lot of damage.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate this particular line of play, and I thought, like, Arm 20 Battle Engine, dice -1. He'll lose an attack. He'll be able to buy 4 attacks. I have 22 boxes. That should do 20 damage. I should be fine. And if he fails, I'll be even more fine. But the feed is worth way more damage points. And if I'd done the math, like in a really conscious way, I would have realized that this is a for sure dead Death Knell, and I definitely should have been more conservative with it.
Yeah. So the Gladiator walks up, rushes. Leadership Titans from the bronze back takes off Fury, so he only has 1 Fury on him. I line up the Beast Handlers behind him to be ready for the next turn to either whip off Fury or enrage a beast that they need to, or just even to contest the zone. And then the bronze back goes in. So his tramples over the Dreadrots. He's got Pathfinder so he can go over the wall thanks to Rush. And he kills 2 Dreadrots.
Yeah, they both get tough checks, and they both fail their tough checks.
And I buy my first attack, which I need 5s to hit. With the feat, I'm at 7 and additional die drop lowest. I do 9 damage on the first hit because I roll 4, 6, 1, and drop the 1.
That's totally what the feat is supposed to do. Like, it just engineers those spikes in a really reliable way.
And after 3 bot attacks, I kill the Death Knell.
Yep. So
Sorry.
Exactly what you needed.
Yeah. I think one of those tokens is actually an enrage token, but he's not full up.
Yeah, the bronze back's got 1 Fury left. I think.
Agonizer walks forward, gnawing pain, so that single Dreadrot that I need it to be is in gnawing pain.
Yep.
And I try to figure out what I can do with the Kreia. I think maybe I can get in paralyzed range for the Skin and Moans. He's out, to say the least. I mostly just play around with this proxy base until I realize I'll just wait till later and figure out where to put him.
Yeah, so this is looking rough for me. I was really counting on being able to throw a bunch of corpses from that Death Knell onto one of my heavies to make it really relevant. Specifically, the Skin and Moans that was supposed to peace trade with Tiberian is now unlikely to be capable of killing Tiberian. Even with abuse, he's only going to be power strength 19 and a dice -2. Tiberian just has too many boxes.
So Beast Handlers go up, enrage to spoiler, get base to base for prodding, and he charges the Skin and Moans. I boost to hit my charge attack because I need 7s even though I'm with the feet. I really don't want to miss this, and it makes the chances of critting that much higher.
Sorry, before that happens, you do take the free strike, which actually spikes really well, but rolls an even-numbered column and does, I think, 8 damage.
Yeah, something like 9 to the 4, I think it was. It was really, really hard-hitting, but it didn't cripple anything important,
So you're fine.
or at all for that matter. So we're good. So I boost to hit the charge attack. I get the crit brutal. It is now 5 dice, drop the lowest at dice +2.
And I'm on fire.
And you're on fire because of Ignite. And I roll 6, 6, 6, 5, 1, which does 25 damage to the Skin and Moans. Yup.
Skin and Moans has, I think, 3 boxes. This is the undamaged one, the one who had not yet been abused or got damaged by a stranglehold or anything like that. So he took 25.7. His plan of killing this Skin and Moans is pretty reliable.
Yeah, and my 2 claw attacks go into Dread Rots, and they just eat it.
Yeah, evaporates a couple of Dread Rots.
And then I buy an attack, hit, don't crit, kill the Skin and Moans because it had 3 boxes left, and it's dice +2. And then I decide, well, I'm here. I can make abusing things harder. I can make upkeeping stuff harder. I will cast Arcane Suppression.
Yep.
This is here now.
Yeah. So Arcane Suppression is really, really punishing here. I didn't think about this, but it's an issue for me.
Now, here's I think where I made a mistake. The Kreia walks up and paralyzes a Dread Rot because I don't want it to charge Xerxes. So that's basically the end of my turn, and we're going into Tim's turn.
So we had a little glitch here, which you'll see in a second. We made a mistake, played out a particular line of play, it ended really predictably, and then we backed it up because CID games, we want to showcase a better version of the game. So you're going to see a little bit of a change here where we had to replace some models. Placement might not be exact, but I think it's very, very close. We use the camera coverage here. I think it's really important, especially for CID games, that if you kind of get someone on a bit of a gotcha moment, you kind of correct for that. So we've got a little bit of a backup in a second. But what you've seen there is I did my Guardian Beast move and started reaving. You're going to get that again in a moment. So we'll just replay that particular part of it. But this turn I've got some work cut out for me. Evan has pretty effectively insulated a lot of stuff, and he's taken kind of a ton of pieces off the table. So here's the corrected game state. Just took us back a step. You'll notice most things are exactly the same. So a little bit of imprecision and a couple of changes. So I make the Guardian Beast move, which is a pseudo vengeance. This is actually way more helpful than I thought because it allows this beast to still do work this turn. And normally Stranglehold beasts but especially Stranglehold melee beasts, get to do virtually nothing when they're Stranglehold. So he got to move up, did a decent chunk of damage to that Despoiler, who already took the free strike. So
yeah, he's hurting.
Yeah, he's taking 18 boxes now? Something quite reasonable.
That vengeance move did 9 damage to him.
Yeah, sorry, 9 damage, and the free strike did 8, and it was 17 or 18, something like that. Yeah, so I walk the Crabbit up, who jumps over. With Tantrum, the Crabbits are 3, so I boost damage on my first attack, and then I buy another attack. Crabbit's only power strength 6 because of the Gnawing Pain aura, but I get a couple of points into the Agonizer. Step 1, kill the Agonizer. This is the Tim game plan of attrition for this turn. Dreadrot are just going to walk. They don't have Pathfinder, so they can't Relentless Charge over the wall. Dreadrot down here, just walking, getting to within 1 inch melee of the Despoiler, and staying just in command. The one misses, the other one hits, and he cranks damage and kills the Agonizer.
And takes his corpse.
Yeah. The Victuals rule allows me to possibly collect that corpse later with one of my heavies, so it's important that he have it. The ones down here make some attacks. I'm not expecting to do a ton of damage to the Despoiler here, but I actually do pretty well.
You leave it on 2 boxes.
Yeah, that's super good. I've got a full heavy there ready to do work against it when I need to. So my plan is to have Skin and Moans kill it and have Skin and Moans collect the corpse. So I hit with his first initial. This is power strength 17 because the one corpse I have. Finishes it off, and Skin and Moans collects a corpse. So that's an arm 18 heavy now, which is nice. He's taken a bit of damage. He's, as I say, he's taken 8 damage already, so he's not perfect health. The child, I wanted to charge the Bruns back here, but I actually end up having to walk because I'm planning to abuse the Skin and Moans on the top flag there. We just correct the flag a little bit because I think it got misplaced slightly. So she abuses. She's not outraged, so she's just power strength 16. But power strength 16 is pretty good. Size minus 3 on the Bruns back.
Yeah. Especially when you're suddenly Fury 8.
Yep. Yeah, 2 for abuse, 2 initials, and then buy a bunch of attacks. Still camp 4, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's tanky. Like the tantrum rule is really cool. It's maybe my favorite arcana. I don't think it's the most powerful arcana, but it suddenly like tips a lot of things into being more capable of doing damage than they were before, including just topping your caster off a little bit. It also has the advantage of making some things that were magic 7, magic 8, and that's a big tipping point in terms of rolling to hit.
Yeah, because she can hit her force hammer better.
Yep. So she hits a bunch of times, does pretty okay damage. I think I rolled 6 to do damage to you 5 times.
Yeah, you did 3 damage every time, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. At dice minus 3, I would have liked to do 4 damage every time, but I did 3 damage every time.
A tiny part of me was thinking that you'd get a crit pitch, and then you could crit pitch the Browns backwards, and then he'd be back in my control area.
Well, I was actually hoping to crit pitch you into the wall to get the extra die on damage.
Yeah.
And then have the Cage Rager be able to charge you. Like, that was my little, I'm going to do a cool thing. But I didn't. So the Cage Rager got enraged by Lady Kiana, and it didn't have to charge, just got to walk in. And it has 2 pound 19 attacks now. And it
Fury 5.
Is Fury 5. It rolled poorly, had to buy 2 attacks or 3 attacks, and killed you.
Yeah. It's a dead Browns back.
Sure is.
Glimmer Imp. No, wait. Is that
Yep,
the Glimmer?
that's
Yeah,
a Glimmer
that
Imp.
is a Glimmer Imp.
Runs over, so he's got Tiberian in his range. I mean, just guaranteeing that Tiberian dies here was really important because I'm pretty sure Tiberian could straight kill the child.
Oh yeah. Especially if I get a crit slam into the Cage Rager.
Yeah,
and
that's
then just bad stuff happens.
It's gonna go super poorly for me. So he charges for free. He's not enraged. He's abused, and he has 1 corpse. So he goes to power strength 19. So he's dice minus 2. But he is Fury 5, which is going to be pretty essential this turn. So he's got kind of a bronze backy thing going on right now. Free charge, power strength 19, 5 Fury.
Yep.
Yeah. Feels a little bit like a bronze back. 2 initials instead of, I don't know, approximately 4.
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. The pain response with the abuse is a really, really tight interaction. It's made those Skin and Moans perform for me in a way that I'm excited about.
Yeah. You do manage to kill Tiberian after some effort.
I think I go to 4 Fury to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of Dreadrots get a charge on the Gladiator. The one who was knocked down just stands up and walks. They both... the one in the back arc hits, does no damage. The one in the front arc misses. So Dreadrot doing Dreadrot things. In this particular case, the Dreadrot thing was nothing. The Skin and Moans who killed Tiberian did collect his corpse too, so he's on 2 as well.
Enough. So it's my turn now. I Spirit Reave from each of my dead heavies, and I take 1 off the Gladiator, and I had 1 from Reaving off the Agonizer last turn, so I'm back up to 5. I don't have anything to upkeep. And the Gladiator hasn't taken any damage, so he's in a good spot. And but the board state isn't great for me right now, considering you've got 3 heavies, and I have 1, because last turn you killed Despoiler, Tiberian, and the Bronzeback.
It's a good turn.
It was a good turn. So I have a unit of Beast Handlers who now have to do work, and I have a unit of Beast Handlers that can just do the normal thing, which is support my beasts, and I have a Kreia that can paralyze something, I guess. So, the plan becomes...
So it is worth noting I didn't contest your flag. So I think you're on 2 this turn.
So I'm
right?
on 2 this turn.
Yep.
So the plan becomes the Gladiator is going to... So the Beast Handlers are going to clear out the Dreadrots in front of the Gladiator. The Gladiator is going to, with rapport, slam the Skin and Moans and hopefully land on the flag. And then beat the Skin and Moans to death because it's knocked down. He slams for free because of Grand Slam.
Mm-hmm.
He moves him 2 extra inches because of Grand Slam, and then buys 4 attacks at dice even, and that should probably kill him, maybe, I hope.
And then you get a point on that flag.
And a point on my own.
So that takes you to 4?
And I go to 4.
Yep.
And then I jam enough that the Skin and Moans on the bottom doesn't murder the crap out of me, or I Stranglehold it again.
Yeah, that seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Man, Stranglehold is such a powerful spell.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've played it a lot on Virus 1, but it's just very, very powerful.
So I walk the Crayon, I paralyze the Skin and Moans. I keep wanting to say Scythian. Skin and Moans on the top.
Yep.
This might be overkill because the Gladiator is Rapport, but I really don't want to have to waste a boost on this.
Mm-hmm.
I also Puppet Master him because
if you double ones that, you need to
if I
reroll
double
it.
ones that, I need to reroll it, and if I roll poorly for damage, I need to reroll it. The
thing is, if he's paralyzed, you need not double ones. If he's not paralyzed, if he's paralyzed, you need not double ones. If he's not, you need a 5, even at mat 8. And like, there's a lot of combinations of dice that miss.
Mm-hmm. My Beast Handlers go 1 Enrage. This is the Gladiator. The rest of the unit takes their time to whip down some Dreadrots. They're anatomical precision, so you don't get tough.
And they auto point.
And they auto point, so they don't need to roll damage.
I mean, they needed 7s, but you had 4 attacks on 2 guys, so that's super.
And I also got some back arcs in there.
Yep, yeah, you got a back arc, I think, maybe 2 actually.
Yeah. So Xerxes goes, walks to there to get in range for Rapport. He's the proxy base right now.
Yep.
To get in range for Rapport, mount attacks Dreadrot. It knocks it down on hit and then kills it because he can't tough.
Yep.
And then I can stab the other guy with my either weapon because they're both reach. So Rapport is on the Gladiator, murder 2 Dreadrots. I can now sprint. I also have 3 Fury left. So I throw out a boosted to hit Stranglehold onto the Scythian.
Did you think about just trying to hard roll the 8 and boost damage?
I thought about it, and I probably should have done that instead just so I have a transfer even if it doesn't hit. Instead, I boost a hit.
Yep, you hit.
And fail to do damage. So
Yeah,
because not Stranglehold, so I have to jam with Beast Handlers now.
With 2 corpses, that Skin and Moans is armor 18. And with an 18, you need to roll an 8 to do 1 point of damage to him.
Yeah.
So it was 8 to hit, 8 for damage, and only 1 boost available to you.
So I put the Beast Handlers in front of Xerxes. One of them is engaging 2 Dreadrots. So the hope is that they can only kill that guy, because if they leave, they take a free strike, and anatomical precision just kills them.
Does the Willbreaker still have Beast Handler or Hurting?
He still has Hurting.
Okay. Because I wondered if the line of play here would have been to save a Fury for Stranglehold and to run him up to force the Gladiator out there.
That could have been a plan. I hadn't really thought of that. Actually.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it's not perfect. So you, on a roll of a 1, you won't quite get base to base with the flag. On a roll of a 6, you'll go past the flag. You rolled a 6.
Yep.
You slam me 4 inches through the water, and you go well past where the flag is by about a half an inch.
Yeah.
So a little overkill. The Gladiator was too enthusiastic.
Yeah. He gets in there though, and because right now he's the proxy base next to
The Skin and Moans.
The Skin and Moans, because he tusks and Scythian hands and all of that jazz. Just not good for model placement. However, after some effort, all 4 Fury, he does kill the Skin and Moans. And you pop your Arcana Wrath?
Yeah, Wrath. This is the Trump Arcana for the child. She's like, you killed my toys, because her nightmares, her war beasts are her toys. So we get out some fire tokens. So this is when you destroy a war beast in her battle group. She can immediately make everything on the continuous effect fire, all enemy models in her control area. So you put out some fire tokens.
My entire army.
Literally
everything. No, literally everything. No, there's no exceptions. I don't know why we put tokens out.
It's good as a reminder. I want it to feel cool, I guess, is my thing.
Okay.
Or hot. I don't know, whatever.
We ran out of your fire tokens, so you had to borrow some of mine.
Yep.
We're here now.
Yeah, it's a pretty lukewarm Arcana. I mean, it's okay. The thing about it is, like, lighting someone's entire army on fire is cool, but now I'm about to have an entire turn where I have to decide what I'm going to kill, and then having killed a bunch of the things that I just lit on fire, I then have to, like, pass the turn to Evan, have him roll those fires out, and then have some guys die. So it's kind of like 2 full turns away from feeling effective. So it seems like this really cool, like, boom, everything's on fire thing that happens, but it actually is really only effective attrition-wise a couple of turns down the line. And you have to play really far forward to get someone's entire army in control, so it's interesting, for sure.
Mind you, I feel like a little later in the game, like now,
Yeah.
when most of the stuff on the table is support pieces, and it's all far forward because it has to be,
Yep.
it's pretty effective because you have 2 other Arcana you've probably used at this point. In this particular game, you've only used 1.
Right.
But this far in, you could have used your other one.
Yeah, I mean, like most of the Arcana, it is designed to be and is a kind of lukewarm feat. But you have 3 of them, but they require your enemy to interact with them. So we forget this Crabbit. I left some Fury on it, so it frenzies, and it freaks out and kills a Beast Handler. It also had a free strike on that Gladiator and did like 7 damage, so it's been a hero Crabbit. So I've got a couple of activations here. The Skin and Moans got enraged by Lady Kiana. The Glimmer Imp ran up to debuff Xerxes. I'm going for the Assassination here. Dreamer moves up. She puts Abuse on that Scythian, and she positions to charge it. The other thing that we didn't mention as it was happening as we were talking about the Arcana is we charged a bunch of Dreadrots into the Beast Handlers. One of them was definitely blocking the lane. That one died, and I collected its corpse. The other one, the Dreadrots, all missed. So 7s. Dreamer throws a Force Hammer at Xerxes and does...
The child.
Or sorry, the child. The child throws a Force Hammer.
Rocks the damage.
At Xerxes and does great damage. Skin and Moans charges in. Pain Response charges for free. Nothing crippled on him. At the end of his movement, he collects that corpse with the victuals you can neither raise nor buy and goes to 3. So 16 goes to 19, goes to 21, goes to 23. Charge attack on Xerxes kills him. He passes the tough check. Second initial kills him again. Fails the tough check.
And that's our second Notorious CID.
Indeed it is. We should give some quick thoughts about our feelings about the models that are being tested. I think these changes to the child make her a lot more compelling.
Field Marshal Pain Response is definitely a good addition.
Yeah. I think it's very, very exciting to play her. She plays a really cool battle group. It did feel like there was a real yin and yang to the way we were playing. I played the Death Nell a little too far forward, but if he'd been a little bit further back, I think the base 1 corpse from the tier list plus the always on effects of the Warmth of the Dead, I think it's more like it does a better job of protecting the pieces that you really have to protect to deliver them interestingly.
Yeah, and you can definitely feel the change for the Dreadrots, the Victuals rule. It's a lot less awkward than the other rule they had.
It's still not automatic. Like, you still have to work for it a little bit, but I think you should have to work for it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the sign of a good rule is I felt like this is a rule that is present, and it was relevant a couple of times, and if I'd worked a little harder, maybe it would have been relevant a few more times. That seems like a good rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks very much for watching. We're hoping to have another CID report next week, but it may be a bi-weekly thing where you see it every 2 weeks. So stay tuned. And if there's any specific Grimkin stuff you really would like to see tested as part of this series, let us know in the comments below.